a sacrifice seduced for the altar of your vanity. A jealous, hungry God, craving praises of profanity. With bedroom dark and dine, and a deep mouth stained with wine, it drinks its fill. It was your mothers, not your brothers, that agreed to feed you poison. This egregious lack of choice indeed seemed fit to join your voice in, with lies disguised as prizes of reason and wisdom, with briberies of finery to weaken any criticism. Can the fly invade the blossom that devours it? A mouth that lies in wait for a gift of life to shower it.
Alright guys, well, welcome back to tonight's game. We have a special one-shot tonight. It is the meeting of Clan Cappadocian. We've skipped forward a few years in our timeline to about right around 86 BC. The exact year isn't terribly important. What is important is that Cappadocius has decided that now is a fantastic time to use his awesome auspex to tell all members of his bloodlines to come to Kuyu. The Romans have begun to build roads in this area. Access to it is finally available to more than just those who are in his vicinity. And he believes that now is the time for a true meeting of the clan. So each of you has received a spiritual summons to attend. We have Hatshepsut's normal player is playing Fausia tonight. Labiena is playing as Labiena. Sardis' normal player is playing as a Cappadocian named Karun. And Albana's normal player is playing as a Cappadocian named Gazia. So, you guys, we joined the game as you are approaching the valley of Kuyu, the city of shadows. It is high in the mountains of Cappadocia, with great green trees, flowering plants all over the place, high walls. The city itself only gets a couple hours of daylight, the village that surrounds it, every day. And the entrance to the underground city itself is exposed to direct sunlight only about 2 to 3 hours, even at the best points of time through the year. So, tonight, as you travel deeper and deeper into the pathways, we find Fausia and Labiena traveling together, Karun and Gazia traveling together. Fausia and Gazia are old acquaintances. They've known each other for a long time, but they haven't talked to one another in quite a long time either. So, Fausia, Labiena, you wake up tonight. You are all along the road. There's a line of carts traveling deeper into the mountains at a nice, slow walking pace. And just ahead of you, joining from a side track, you see a familiar head of hair, long, lustrous, flowing, the only vestige of her immortal beauty left. Your old mate, your old rival, Gazia. And that's where we pick up.
Garcia coming to view. Fazia sort of momentarily stops. I believe you said that, she's on horseback, so, like, did she say she was on horseback or cart or the like?
Horseback or cart, your choice. You could be walking. It's a pretty slow pace.
Um, we'll say cart because horses would be logistically difficult for various reasons, but, on seeing, Gazia, she sort of freezes a moment. Um, gives a slow, small nod, and then almost pointedly, puts her eyes back on the road, not addressing her further unless she approaches.
And I assume Gazi also sees her back, yes?
Yes, you definitely see her.
A look of, behind her mask, a look of surprise, shock, and a bit of amusement, perhaps, starts forming on Gazi's face before she starts approaching Fauzia, giving her a nod back in reply, a much more soft nod, a much more not this a very human-like nod of reply to Fauzia's own short nod. Fauzia, do my eyes deceive me?
Of course they don't.
Um, she's going to look over and I imagine Labiena is also visible, yes?
Yes, as is Karun.
And you have a companion with you.
Yes. Labiena? This is Gazia. Gazia Labiena.
Labiena will look over at Gazia, give a slight nod. Gazia. A pleasure.
A pleasure making your acquaintance, child. This is my own child, Karun. She motions over to the man alongside her.
Hello, good evening. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
Labiena will look over at Karun and, as before, give a slight nod. A pleasure.
So, do tell from the little that I can see of your body beneath your cloak, and it seems like you are getting quite a few years of experience with a blood. I had no idea that Fazia had signed someone so long ago.
I didn't. I've just taken her on as a protege.
Ah, a protege, apprentice. What does Gazia know about Nicodemus?
Nothing. However, I believe Kazi has enough aspects to attempt a mind reading if you wanted to.
Sure.
So you have to spend a point of willpower to attempt to penetrate her thoughts, given that she is a vampire. And aspects, level 4. Your dice pool will be 9 dice for this. Intelligence plus subterfuge. Difficulty 7.
Yeah, out of character, I'm guessing Septimus isn't traveling with them?
He
I'm
is
guessing he made his own
around.
way there?
He's around. He's just not like immediately visible to you guys.
Okay.
He seems to have pulled ahead a little bit to speak with a few older ones that are in line. Okay. You penetrate Falzia's thoughts for a moment. Falzia, what are your top two surface thoughts going through your head?
I think the first one is just a conscious thought of keep attention on the road, keep attention on the road. Like she's trying actively to not in her own eyes be distracted by this.
Okay. So, Gazia, the most numerous thought foremost in her head is to act normal, act casual, and not to look foolish by doing something like driving her cart off the side of the road. And what's your
Um,
second deeper thought?
it's not entirely it's not entirely fully formed, but there is definitely a hint of feelings about thoughts regarding Nicodemus before Labiena.
So your second thought that Gazia picks up is the image of a young man of Salubri descent, with a beard and a handsome, smiling face, and thoughts of regret and loss.
Guys, you're not feeling for this feeling of loss. She casts a brief glance towards her own child and feels a moment of sympathy for her rival. I see. Well, it is fortunate that you'd be able to find someone to pass on your knowledge. Yes, even if it's not one that shares your own blood.
Yeah, I guess. So, uh, how have things been for you and your child then?
Quite well, if you must know. Indeed, I'd say that I found a line of inquiries, of studies and research that has been uh, most interesting to pursue. I'm quite eager to see how the others of our clan will react once I present it, and of course, I'm equally eager to see what they are going to be presenting.
One of the other Cappadocians overhears you and just kind of ventures back to you. Yeah, I heard that The last time he called any large gathering, that our father himself was giving out awards and punishments towards those who could present great research and those who were lacking.
Apt rewards from the great Cappadocian himself. Now that is nearly as enticing as the idea of a punishment from him is worrying. But of course, those of us that have good research material to present do not have anything to worry about. Isn't that true, Fauzia?
Yep. Um, I'm sure we'll be just fine.
At that, Labiena almost instinctively gives a kind of a nod of affirmation.
I just hope that our research will please Cappadocius and that he will find our interest very interesting, for the lack of a better word. So, what is, if I may know, what is the nature of your research, Labiana?
At this point, Labiena will kind of seem to hesitate for a moment, although that being almost instinctual given that she hasn't been around terribly many members of her own clan throughout her unlife. But she ponders for a moment. She turns to Karun and says, well, let's just say it's along the lines of investigative. I don't even know if that's the word. Almost
Uh,
hands-on.
hmm. Um, Fazia will start elaborating on certain points. Just trying to making some of the details clear. Details that are out of character I'm not entirely clear on.
So Labiena, make a wits plus politics roll real quick.
Okay.
Difficulty 6.
Okay. Let's try that again.
Oh no! You feel the urge to start bragging along with her.
Yeah. So seeing Fauzia sort of start explaining a bit more, all of a sudden she feels this urge to start doing the same, and every chance she gets, she'll add a point of her own just to add a little more to the details. Not knowing exactly why.
But what is your duty when referred when you're studying that? Because studying that for just the knowledge, don't you see it's a little bit wasteful without being able to apply the knowledge to something else? What is it why you're actually looking to study that?
Well, I mean, it's why we all study. To learn as much as we can about our own existence, is it not?
But don't you find it wasteful that that knowledge just is collected somewhere and not being used properly? What's the value in knowledge if it's not being used? Knowledge, just for knowledge's sake, is just information. It becomes knowledge when it's used properly. So that's what I'm asking actually. What are you using that knowledge for, that information? What are you applying it for? What is your goal to use to gather that information for?
The information is used to gather more information until the final answer is eventually found.
And until such time as an opportunity presents itself where the knowledge will ostensibly become useful. Because it could become useful at any time.
If
We
you
all gather
say
knowledge.
so.
Is that not why you gather knowledge?
I gather knowledge to more apply it to better others. I find knowledge useful when it can be properly applied. I'm not against seeking knowledge, but I find it wasteful if you do not apply it to better either yourself or others. It's a sin to let knowledge just to collect knowledge and not use it.
I agree.
Just because we don't use it looking after the cattle doesn't mean that we don't use it.
But you said so yourself during your speech. You keep collecting knowledge. Nowhere in that speech did you say that you're gonna use it. You said you're gonna keep collecting knowledge and keep collecting knowledge until you find the answer to the final question. You never said that you were gonna use it.
No, the knowledge is itself a tool for the further acquisition.
But did that help you bring any closer to finding the final answer?
Yes,
Okay,
because sorry, what was that?
Did acquiring
Oh,
more
no, go.
knowledge?
Sorry, I meant from Labiena.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead. I've already forgotten.
The final answer will only come about when we've managed to gather, well, perhaps not all of it, but all the relevant knowledge.
I
Yes.
thought
The knowledge, you could say, is are different pieces to the whole puzzle. And as we gather knowledge, we seek to find the next subsequent piece of the puzzle.
I for one agree with you, Fazia. You are very much right on this. We cannot get to the final knowledge without getting the knowledge that lies on the way. Without learning the secrets that lie between the final knowledge and the first revelation. The question is, have you made the first revelation, Fazia? Have you started from the beginning?
Way you ask that makes it sound like you're certain you've done so yourself.
I feel like it at least. Or at least started from a beginning that many others seem to ignore.
Uh, under her breath, Fazia, trying to keep it from being overheard, my woman just says, "Yeah, that's you, all about feeling, right?"
Well, stands to reason that we all start from a beginning.
Indeed we do. She's going to look over to Labiena and she's going to give a smile beneath her mask. Tell me, Labiena, from where did you started?
Well, for a moment, Labiena can be seen kind of thinking, as if she was thinking back. And in a sense, kind of remembers back to something that happened in a previous session. I think it was the last session. And is reminded of where she was in her mortal life. Well, I feel like I started before I was embraced. See, I was introduced to the idea of death and some of the intricacies which surround it. So, after my embrace, and after I learned that there was more to it, it triggered my interest. And that began my seeking of knowledge. And every piece of the puzzle I found had me asking more questions and seeking more answers. Until we're here today.
You are very wise, child. Very wise indeed. It's exactly that where it all begins, with life. With the ones that are living and breathing, walking under the sun. That's where death begins. Not with the bodies that lie cold.
At this point, Fazia almost interjects and says, uh, as fascinating as talking philosophy always is with you, Gazia, maybe we should start focusing on the road again. We've got a long way to go.
Of course. Thank you for the conversation, Fazia. It is a pleasure meeting you once again. And to make your acquaintance as well, Lady Laviana. She stresses the part lady when she talks to Labiena, not having used that to address Fausia. Having addressed Fausia direct by her first name while giving a title to Labiena.
Labiena, I would like to make a perception plus empathy roll against Fawzia at difficulty 6. Actually,
I'll just see
difficulty
if she
4.
notices.
You're pretty familiar with her by now, so let's make it 4.
Okay, so it was. You said perception empathy, yeah?
Yes.
What did you say?
Diff 4.
4, that's right.
Yeah, you definitely easily pick up on the fact that there's something about Gazia that just rubs Fawzia the wrong way. Like, she's exhibiting emotion that she doesn't normally exhibit. And remember, the Road of Bones, you can have emotion, you just can't let it guide your actions. And Fawzia is exhibiting signs of distress that you've learned to pick up on.
Yeah. At this point, Labiena would be looking at Fawzia. As soon as she notices, she'll be. Obviously, she won't have a concerned look because she's learned very well how to not show emotion. But having known each other as long as they have, I'm fairly certain Fawzia would kind of notice, I suppose, a certain level of concern from her. She notices what's going on with Fawzia right now. Almost a warning as such to say, be careful.
Yeah, at a point in the road where it widens up a little bit, you guys drop back a little so you can have a little bit of a private chat without Ghazi overhearing. Allow you to discuss what just happened.
Yeah, at this point, Labiena will turn to Fawzia. Are you all right?
I'm fine. Don't listen to Garvia too much. She puts all this stock in her emotion rather than her brain. If you let her get to you, she'll just drag you into same bullshit she has.
Don't worry, I can take care of myself. But I just want to make sure you're all right. Have you known her long?
Since before Embrace.
Ah.
It doesn't matter. No doubt we'll show her up. And she starts sort of incoherent. She starts sort of like grumbling a bit under her breath, before shaking her head. As we're going on, are there any other questions you wanted to ask me?
No. From this point, Labiena will kind of stay silent, but continue to walk alongside Fawzia.
All right, you guys eventually get back into line without too much time lost. Eventually, the trail leads through a small pass between the cliffs. and up under the cliff face. What you see is a layer of bare rock with some holes in it, and you see one that's quite deep and large. The trail leads up to it. Now there is underneath it, in the valley below, there is a village. Looks to be, at first glance, you'd say maybe 100, 200 buildings in it. Probably about 200 buildings. Maybe 1,000, 1,500 people, perhaps, live inside of it. There's a farm, many farms laid out, as you can see in the moonlight. You stop at an outpost right there, and you have to dismount from your carts. Gather up your things and walk up the trail to the cliff face, and then to the overhangs, to the caves itself. As you climb, the first thing you notice is that the stones are wet. They seem to be kind of porous, and they're absorbing moisture. And after a couple of hours, you reach it, and you realize that as you climb, sometimes you have to use your hands to help you up, and it seems like almost like there's a residue of slime under your fingers. You do, however, eventually reach, all of you, apologize for that. You reach the face, the cave entrance. There's a necromancer waiting there for you. And Gazia and Karun, you reach them first. And he looks at you and he asks you guys a question. He says, "What is the first principle of death?"
Would I know this?
It's a philosophical question.
Inevitability.
So if you want to make a dice roll, you would roll 8 dice, which would be your wits plus enigmas. At difficulty 5, because this is a somewhat basic question that all necromancers have to ponder. So, Karun, you attempt to answer first, and you say something that's wildly wrong. However, Gazia puts her hands up to stop you and says that the first principle of death is that death is not the end. And the necromancer seems to consider this, and he nods, and he points at Gazia and says, "You may proceed to the second level." And he looks at Karun, he says, "You, however, apprentice, must stay on the first level underneath."
As you say,
So do you guys put up a fight? Do you proceed?
Gazi gives Karun a affectionate kiss on the hand, trying to before she proceeds to make her way up the stairs to the second level, climbing up further.
So you enter the cave, and the first thing you see is that it is cramped. The entrance is narrow, small. The stone is, as I said, quite slick. It's dark. There is only a couple of... it's lit only by some lamplight and candlelight that spill from a few chambers. There's a very large stone slab at the entrance, and as you enter, you notice that there's very few doors. There's a couple of stone slabs, but the doors themselves are all kind of improvised. So, Oh, come on. Work for me. Yeah, so you enter, leaving your apprentice behind. Karun, I need you to make a perception plus occult roll. Or, no, I take that back. Perception plus awareness. As you enter the darkened halls of Darren Kuyu, your senses are assaulted by the screams of the dead. They cry and beg for mercy, for release. They rage and scream and promise horrible revenge. And everyone walking around you just seems to be ignoring this. They don't. It's like they don't hear it at all. You are under the effect of Call of the Hungry Dead for so long as you are within the walls of this city.
I stumble and hold the walls to keep from falling over as I shake my head, trying to tune them out a little bit so I can focus where I'm going.
What is your Auspex rating? Was it 2 or is it 4?
Or
I need you to roll me your perception plus empathy at difficulty 5. So I get difficulty 7. Call of the Hungry Dead. All perception rolls are at plus 2 difficulty. Difficulty 7. As you stumble, grabbing your head, one hand out, you slap at the entrance to a doorway, and you immediately see a necromancer, a neonate, slitting the throat of a mortal and smearing its blood along the doorway, and then your senses snap back to you. There is no smear of blood, and you realize you just saw a vision of somebody who used the death of a mortal to do something to this chamber. Gazia, you have been with your child for many, many, many years. You are exquisitely attuned to his emotional needs, and you are sensing waves of distress emanating from him. Is my voice coming through?
Yes.
Okay. It got really quiet. I hope that's just because people are trying to consider what they're going to do.
I want to use or try to use at least a third thought of aspects to see why that man killed that mortal, if it was necessary to kill a mortal like that.
Okay, this time you purposefully try to cast yourself back into the vision. This time it's difficulty 5. Alright. That's many successes. You cast yourself back into the vision, and you see it smear the blood across the top of the carved doorway, and then take the body into the room, and a wavery curtain of mystic energies of death flares into being in the front of the doorway, and you realize it is a ritual that's supposed to help block out any errant sunlight that may penetrate the chamber.
You mean?
Did I see the face of the human he killed? A detailed look at his face?
Yes, you did.
Do I sense ghosts in this room? I do, right?
Oh, you sense ghosts everywhere. Everywhere. They are filling your ear. Cries, screams. It's all you can. It's all you can do to block them out enough to concentrate or talk, to form a coherent thought. It's like being at a loud party, and you're trying to focus on one person, and all you can hear is the music, thump, 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 thumping in your ear, and people shouting, hollering. Only at a party, they're usually having a good time. This is distressed screams, angry, raging cries. And you just look at it and you just can't understand why nobody else seems to be able to hear this.
If I do not spot anybody else acting weird in any way, and out of character,
It's
is
because you're a
this effect?
medium.
Yeah, out of character, is this effect throughout the whole complex or just this room?
Oh no! It's as soon the second you entered, you passed through the doorway. So you had to start walking down a chamber, and you're like trying to feel your way down the chamber because it is very dark. And you go down a one set of steps, you turn around a corner, and you could just boom. That's when it started happening. But it's been affecting you for 70, 80 feet that you've been inside the complex already.
Can I see any spirit that's ghosts that are looking at me or something like that?
You
Like
cannot
I can.
see ghosts with medium.
I'm gonna try aspects too to see if I can spot one.
Okay, perception, empathy, difficulty 10 because of your. Unless you want to spend a willpower to block out the help filter out the calls for a scene.
I'm spending the willpower.
All right, difficulty 8.
Well, do I see one?
How many successes did you get? 3.
Yep.
All right. Not in this particular doorway, but you do see in the hall spirits, a few ghostly auras flashing with dark, dark rage.
Knowing from experience, I'm gonna leave them be. I'm not gonna approach them then. Then I'm gonna find somewhere where I can sit or see if I can
Hey,
start
yeah, another
talking to
neonate,
someone else. Yeah.
much younger than you, takes your name and he gives you a chamber number and directs you to a chamber number. There's going to be 3 or 4 Canites in here with you, but you are eventually do find a place where you can sit, set your stuff down, and just sort of sit down and take stock of where you're at and your mental situation. And while that's happening, as you guys, as Fawzia and Labiena come up, this same Cappadocian is asking questions to everyone as they come through the door. And he looks at the two of you and he says, "What is the purpose of our power?"
To understand the ultimate mysteries.
And he looks at Labiena. Do you have a different answer?
trying to think how she'd answer that. Because I don't even know how to answer that.
It's the question is, why do they study death? Well, that's the purpose of necromancy. Why? What's the
Yeah,
purpose?
why?
You may roll your
When
wits plus enigmas if you want to make a dice roll.
Not sure if I have enigmas though. Let me just check. Because otherwise she's just going to say something like...
Falzia, I also need you to roll that as well.
Okay.
It's a good answer, but it's a pretty generic answer as well.
Because otherwise Labiena was just going to say something like, to learn the mysteries of our existence.
And once again, that's good, but kind of generic.
Base diff.
6, yes.
Oh, I've got 1 dot. So what was it again?
Wits plus enigmas.
Wits enigmas. Okay. Div 6, he said?
Yes. All right. He looks at the two of you, and he seems to be considering. And he says, he smears a mystic symbol on your foreheads, the same as he did for Karun and Gazia. And he says, 2nd level, but high up. And he allows the two of you to enter. And you get the impression that the higher up in the complex you have to stay, the less satisfactory your answer was. And therefore your understanding is less.
Fazia goes along, but Labiena will probably be able to pick up fairly easily that beneath that sort of forced calm, she is fuming.
I suppose for her part, Labiena's just kind of puzzled. But she goes along with it.
So again, each of you, you descend. A neonate helpfully guides you to a chamber. You're given a chamber number. You are guided to the same chamber since you entered together, and you are staying in the same place. So he guides you to a place where you can set your things, and then you are left to your own devices, the same as Karun and Gazia. It is approximately midnight, maybe a little bit later, 1 o'clock. So you get about half the night if you wanted to explore or talk to people or do anything.
Do we have access to other levels, or are we limited
yes,
to?
yes. Just nobody's told you can't go deeper. It's that you just have, the chamber where you're staying has been decided.
So can I go up?
If you go up, you're going to be exiting the cave. You can go down if you want. The worst they're going to do is stop you and tell you can't come down here. And they might not do that.
So actually, there's no way for me to reunite with my sire.
I literally just said nobody told you can't go deeper.
No, I'm gonna see if I can find my sire then.
Okay. navigation through here is actually just kind of luck. So roll a wits +2 for me. If you don't know exactly where you're going, if you don't know what chamber she's in, you just don't know. So it's kind of based on luck.
You said wits +2?
Yeah, wits +2. Or 5 dice, whichever is more. I really, like I said, kind of based on luck.
I'm gonna roll 5 dice then.
Oh yeah, you get very lucky. You descend the steps to the second level. You turn a couple of corners, doing your best to look like you belong, and you shouldn't be kicked out or punished by being down here. And you come upon Gazia, who just found her chambers and had just set her stuff down.
Abrocher. Mother, mother. Do you feel them? Do you hear them? It's overpowering. Can you hear them? And you see the distress on his face.
She's going to reach over and start gently running her hand over his face. Over. Is he currently wearing his mask, or is he barefaced at the moment?
I believe he would be barefaced at the moment.
Running her hand over his face. Child, calm down, please. Now, speak to me. What did you see?
They sacrifice mortals for a ritual. And their spirits are stuck here in an angry state, pleading for help. Can you not hear them?
She leans closer to him so that she can whisper into his ear. No, child, I have not opened my ears to listen to their cries. I understand your concern for the spirits, for the departed. But there is nothing you can do for them, not in here, not now. You always been sensitive to their cries. Sometimes that is a blessing, but at the moment, I'm afraid it's going to be a curse for you.
I will follow your guidance, mother. But you realize that he is really distressed about this whole situation. He feels that he needs to help, but he cannot.
She runs her hand over his hair. I know how you feel. You have a gentle heart, an open heart, a heart that yearns to know, to not just know about death and about life, but also know ways to improve one's passing through it. You wish to help them, but you cannot. And I know this hurts you. But please, for me, endure the pain.
If I must.
Thank you, child.
Ah, Fazia and Labiena, as what are you guys doing with some of your free time here?
Fazia has taken out some of her notes and is sort of going over them meticulously, making new ones, and it basically seems like she is doing. She seems to be trying to make the best they possibly can be.
Pre-test jitters Got it. Making that term paper good.
Hmm.
Labiena, this is a new side to Fausia. This is something you've never seen before. Nervousness, jealousy, maybe. Um, the little bit of envy, possibly. She's always been so collected, so eager in the past.
Yeah, this undoubtedly has Labiena a little puzzled. But yeah, she just says nothing. Figures it'll pass. And in a similar
Eventually,
manner,
oh,
well,
sorry.
I wouldn't say similar manner to Falzia, but I suppose in a more calm, kind of rational manner, Labiena's probably just looking through her notes, just, everything she brought with her and everything she's going to talk about when it's her turn to speak.
Um, Eventually, Fazia will look up and glance over to Labiena. What do you think of her, Van?
Labiena will look up and over at Falzia. Think about what?
Gazia.
Um, well, having only just met her, I feel like, well, I saw in her eyes that she's definitely still swayed by emotion. But on the same token, it seems she does have a very similar say thirst for knowledge, but the same hunger for knowledge that we do. Perhaps for different purposes, but what do you think?
She's weak, but somehow things keep going right for her. It's irritating. And it doesn't take much to realize that on her part that is very much an understatement.
But hearing those words, um, Labiena's almost getting that concerned look on her face again. Kind of thinking to herself, this isn't exactly how we should be talking on our road.
When noticing Labiena's own concern, Rosea sort of like considers herself for a moment. Um, Not quite takes a breath because that instinct's probably long withered, but does some sort of equivalent, gesture to like calm herself and just and just uh, word sorry, just looks up. We were way back when we were both priestesses, kind of like you and some of your friends. She was always so so complacent about her role, though. Like she'd look into things, sure. She'd like do some reading here and there, etc., etc. But she was always just had this whole what will be attitude to just accepting accepting what she thought life gave her. Even when she turned, she didn't really didn't do proper experimentation as much as we do. She's convinced herself that she can figure it all out just by tending to tending to uh, tending to the cattle.
Not knowing if Falzia is being figurative or literal, that phrase right there kind of puzzles Labiena a little bit. So she kind of says inquisitively, tending to the cattle.
Mortals, humans, whatever you call them.
Ah, of course.
Okay, well, moving on. Time does pass. Gazia Koloon, did you guys have anything to do before turning in for the day?
Among the other people present, is there anyone that would be recognizable to Gazia besides Fauzi and Labiena herself?
Not on this level. You haven't seen anybody you really recognize. The clan seems to have expanded quite a bit. Um, it's actually getting kind of crowded in here. You do see a couple of people that you saw on the road. If you walk the caverns, as you descend to the third level, you see the one that had the fungus growing on it is near the entrance of the third level.
She's going to be walking around, making some small talk, trying to get a glimpse on what people are working on, what people are going to be presenting, trying to get a heads up on what's going to be happening for the future days.
Yeah, a lot of them don't seem to have anything earth-shattering. Fauzia's road of inquiry actually seems to be pretty unique in terms of what she's doing. Everybody else just seems to be following the same methods of thought of more experimentation with dead bodies, trying to make them do more things, give them possibly some more independence of thought. Yeah, so you're not hearing a lot of earth-shattering stuff. The one with fungus on her is kind of doing the same thing you are, just sort of walking around. How deep in the city do you want to go tonight? Because
Not
there are
very,
many levels.
not very deep. She just arrived. She does not have the entire night, so She's just going to do 1, 2 floors below, above or below her.
Right. Yeah, so just talking to people, you get the impression that the tunnels here extend for many miles. There's a lot of underground space. Um, there's at least a dozen levels uh, to the city, and they extend deep, deep, deep into the mountains and underground, far beyond where the mortals would ever go. So they have been carved by Cappadocians themselves over many years. I would like you to make it. Anybody who goes to the fourth level would like you to make a perception plus alertness roll. Vision based, of course, difficulty 6. And if you don't descend that far, that's fine. If Gazia, that'd be probably 10 dice for you.
That's something Labiena probably wouldn't be doing this night.
So, Gazia, you see a in the city of the decrepit and the decaying. You see an anomaly. You see a vampire who's decently good looking, not like supernaturally great looking, but for this region, um, this is I went to an all boys high school and I finally got out and saw a girl, and so therefore the girl looks really great. You know what I mean?
As in, he's not looking like a Cappadocian.
Yeah. Brown hair to the shoulder blades, about mid back. Matronly hips, matronly bust line. Her fangs are not retracted, so she's got her vampiric fangs are out. She's got very highly intelligent dark eyes. And she is sweeping through the corridors like she belongs here, and there is nothing and no one who's going to stop her. And everyone just seems to pick up on this confidence and gets out of her way as she walks. And she's just. There's something about her, there's a strength about her. And as she passes near you, you get a look into her face, into her eyes. And there's something in her eyes that tells you that she would just as soon rip your throat out as say hello. And it depends on her mood.
Gaz is going to take a chance, and when she meets her, Gaz is going to give her a smile and a nod of the head, trying to provide her a friendly greeting instead of the guarded and afraid, fearful glances that she's receiving from the others.
She stops, she looks at you, she looks down, she looks up, and she just reaches out and she grabs at your breast and your hip. She goes, "When you were a mortal, did you give birth?"
Multiple times, yes.
Good. Well done. What was your name?
I'm Gazia.
Kazia. I'll be looking for you later. You know it takes an understanding of life to truly understand death.
Behind her mask, Gazia's face lights up. She nods, gives a rather vigorous nod. Indeed, after all, who can hope to understand the last chapter of a chronicle without reading the start, the first one? You are. Forgive me, miss, I do not believe I have your name.
Oh, you can call me Lame.
Lame. A pleasure meeting you, making your acquaintance, Miss Lame.
If you see Lazarus, tell him I'm looking for him.
Of course. I'll send him your way.
And she just smiles, and it's like anticipation, predatory. It's a smile of a lion who's just about crept up on his prey and is about to pounce. Be sure that you do so. And she lets you go, and she turns around and she keeps on going.
Uh, with the prompt that she made to the scary woman,
But you
Gus,
know who Lazarus is, by the way.
yes, he's going to start looking, trying to fulfill that promise as quickly as possible.
You know that you are going to have to go deep in the caverns. If you're going to try to find him, he's probably going to be very deep within.
Yeah, she's going to head deeper then. As soon as she can.
Are you
As soon
taking
as
your child with you?
What the hell? Yes. If Karen wants to come, she's going to make herself available to take him to accompany him.
Yeah, I believe I'll be sticking by her side throughout this whole ordeal.
Right? As you walk down the levels deeper and deeper into the cavern system, you hear a voice speak to you, and it's a voice you haven't heard in a long time. The voice of your best friend who you drained in frenzy when you were first embraced. And he says to you, I thought we had a deal, friend.
I know, but I cannot do anything right now. Please, right now, I cannot. Because if I do something, I will be destroyed. And then all our deal will be for naught.
And you think
Can
this
you wait a
matters
little
to
bit?
me?
But I thought our deal was to help others. If I'm destroyed now, I will not be able to help others like you want me to.
And if you're
Please,
destroyed now, then you get to join me in this hell that you have placed me.
would that help us in any way to achieve what you want to achieve?
It would make me happy.
Yeah, but it will be just momentary pleasure.
I don't get any other kind.
But think about it. Right now, you're the only one who can torment me. But if I join you there, I will be to fan myself and torment you too. So wouldn't it be preferable if I stay on this side of the shroud, where only you can affect me?
You just says something to the effect of, just keep your eyes open for an opportunity, friend, or things will get much worse.
I am looking for an opportunity, but I have to look for one that will not draw the, the wrath of those more powerful than me. I will look for an opportunity. I want to help.
And of course, Gaza, you heard all of that. You heard Karun's side of that conversation because he does have to speak out loud.
Forgive me, child, but are you speaking to someone?
Sorry, mother, I have not brought this to your attention, but the night of embrace, I drained my best friend. And since that night, his ghost has been tormenting me. Throughout the years, we have struck a bargain. I will help others cross over and move to the underworld, and he will leave me at peace while I'm doing performing those acts. That is the reason why I focus my study on helping ghosts move from this world to the underworld, not to stay here. That's part of the bargain we struck. And as soon as I reached this place and I felt and I heard all of those spirits here, I knew he was going to show up.
And Gazia takes a hand to her forehead and lets out a very human-like sigh. Oh, child, why didn't you told me of this before?
I believe I could have handled it, but it appears I'm stuck in a situation where I cannot do anything to uphold my end of the bargain at this moment. But I've managed to quiet it for a while, but I have to find a way to have at least one of those stuck in this place. Otherwise, he's gonna start tormenting me again. He might even hurt you, Mother.
Have you tried helping your friend pass through the shroud? Head towards his afterlife?
That's the thing. The only thing keeping him here is me. If I want to help him pass to the afterlife, I would have to destroy myself completely, soul included.
Oh, Chad, I do not envy your position. Maybe, maybe there is not much that you can do to help the spirits in here, as to help all the spirits in here, but perhaps one or another as a show of your own work, of your own studies, you might be able to use them to use the passing to the shout as a way to demonstrate own uh, your own experiments.
I hope that will appease him for a little while, and I hope that we will not be here for a long while, because I fear he might get angry again then.
Do what you need to do, child, but please, for me, be careful.
I will, Mother.
Eventually, you reach a point where there is a mystical seal that you realize you need. There's probably a little too much for you to pass. There's something about this seal that you recognize that it requires a level of occult knowledge, necromantic knowledge that you don't have.
They need the bigger boys to open the door. Yes. She's going to, well, seeing her path impeded by this hill, she's going to proceed to return to her spot, to her assigned area.
All right. Yeah, and that pretty much covers the rest of the night. You retire to your areas. Um, by the way, each of you are down 3 blood points. So when you wake up, it'll be down 4. Um, so you awake later with the city beginning to come to life around you. A human is going around and pouring lamp oil into a little jar near the front of each room. How many of you guys can see in the dark? By that sound, I think the answer is none.
No.
Pretty much.
I mean, no more than anyone can see in the dark, anyway.
So, you are, even with all senses enhanced with aspects, blindly groping towards the wick and the candles. I need courage rolls from whoever is attempting to light the candle or lantern in your room.
Guys, you'll be doing that?
Gazia, that's going to be 3 dice.
Labiena, not Labiena. Fazia will also do it.
And said Labiena will too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, only one of us needs to do it, so Labiena, go ahead.
I will
Difficulty?
do it also.
Difficulty's 4.
Okay.
Gazia, you handle this no problem. This, with all of your senses enhanced as they are with Auspex, the sparks as you scrape, attempting to get the little pile of tinder to spark and to light the lamp. It's as bright as a lamp itself to your eyes. Each spark, and your little beast is like, "Arr!" And you're like, no, it's just a lamp. And Labiena, this is typical for you. You've done this so many hundreds of times. It's almost routine to you.
I want to do it also, but what's my courage reading? We haven't talked about that in character creation.
3. So yeah, there's a couple of people groping for the candle, Karun, but you find it first, and you can hear them kind of shuffling around. You're like, you call out to them, I got it. Cover your eyes. So you give them a second to react, and then you start scraping, and the lamp or candle flares into life, and you look around, and the other occupants of the room are all have their hands up, and they're kind of turned to the side to look away from where you were lighting it. So yeah, one by one, all the chambers begin to light up as candles are lit or lamps, and people rise, and some of them are putting on fresh clothing, some are just wearing the same stuff they had on yesterday, and they're preparing for another night. Now, there was no program given out to people, but as you walk through the halls, you did hear a couple of people talking about what they thought was going to happen. And one of the things that you know is going to happen is some of the elders are going to be walking around over the course of the next couple of weeks and talking to all of you, just to get an understanding of where you're at, what you've been working on, that kind of stuff. So it's not like you guys, there's a list of things to do that on Monday night we're doing this, and on Tuesday night we're doing this. It's more like a great big unorganized conference.
Friday night is bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna proceed to find my sire.
All right, you do that, no problem. Yeah, so first thing, Karun goes, you actually are on this so quickly, you almost walk off with the candle before realizing, oh wait, you guys might need this, and hand it back to them before going on your way. So, I think now's a good time. Let's take a short break, guys. Let's take 10 minutes and refresh our coffee and everything, and let's get back to it.
Okay.
Okay, and we're back. So this pattern kind of repeats itself every night for a couple of weeks. You guys someone goes around, provides some fresh candles and stuff for you, fresh lamp oil, and then you are given leave to explore, to talk to the other necromancers, to see what they're doing, that kind of stuff. So if you guys have any goals or anything you wanted to pursue, individual things, people you wanted to talk to, now is basically the time to do it, as you're essentially given the chance to network.
I believe I'm gonna follow my sire's lead and stick with her.
Guys is going to be attempting to ask around for Lazarus?
Okay. After about a week, uh, a creature, for lack of a better word, comes up to see you. Um, Lazarus wears a thick robe with a hood over his head, so all you can see are these piercing bright eyes peeking out from under the hood. His voice is quiet but strong. Um, there's something just from the tone of his voice and his eyes. You can tell he's fiercely intelligent. And when he talks to you, he first addresses you in Hebrew, and when you don't answer to that, he addresses you in Phrygian, which you do speak. Phrygian being a type of Proto-Greek language. So as one night, as you are pursuing some of your own studies, going over some notes you were taking from talking to some other Cappadocians, he comes up to you and he sees your child sitting at your feet, kind of rocking back and forth, holding his head in his hands. He struggles to block these voices out. Karun, as he comes in, the voice is quiet around him in fear. And this whispering voice comes out of the hood. I hear you've been asking after me, young one?
That is correct, Mr. Lazarus. Lord Lazarus, there is a woman that asked me to look for you and direct you her way. She goes by the name of Flammery.
Perception plus alertness roll, vision based, difficulty 7.
For me, it's also 7.
Yep, because you're trying to see into his hood, which has been angled to block his face. Yeah, so Karun, from your angle, you look up, and you see every emotion play out on his face, and the predominant emotion is fear. And his face, which actually looks not bad for his age, if anything, somehow gets paler and whiter. And he's like, oh yes, of course. Yes, she already found me. Thank you for asking. And he turns around and leaves with his back very stiff.
As she leaves, guys is going to, well, the fact that uh, the short reply, the very way how he behaved, causes Gaza to raise an eyebrow and she decides to ask, Lord Lazarus, may I ask if she
No,
is of the plan?
he doesn't even answer. He just walks away. He's gone. Boom! He's out of there. He does not want to talk about this at all.
What did just happen, Master?
I'm not quite sure. I think I met someone that might be able to put fear into Lazarus for his own well-being.
And were they pleasant to interact with?
It was an experience. She seemed to be much more in line with our way of view things than most of the rest of our clan is, at least.
Can we go look for her? Because when Lord Lazarus was here, just his presence alone quieted all the voices. Maybe if we can find her, she also might be able to have that ability to quiet the voices around me.
Perhaps, yes. We could attempt to search for her. She's quite distinctive.
Okay.
All right. You spend some time searching, and eventually you make your way back to the area that had been blocked off by a mystic seal. And this time, there is a man of he's bearded. He looks like an old scholar, a pleasant man, white hair. Looks like a grandfatherly type. He gives off an air of deep age and wisdom. And looking at him, you can tell he's using obfuscate on his face. But you kind of get the impression that all he's doing is eliminating the pallor of the grave from it. So he probably really looked like this at one point. It's kind of the impression you're getting. And he looks up and he says, "Can I help you?"
Yes. My child is to seek the one called Labiena.
Ah, a brave one, I see. May I ask why? I need you to roll your intelligence plus politics. You as well, Karoon. The two of you recognize. Oh, no, that's a 0.
I believe that to be an HS.
Yeah, you can make 8. 8, 9, and 10 are pretty much going to be your dice pools for most of these rolls, unless you have to get violent, and in which case you're kind of screwed. Yeah, you recognize him as Japheth.
What do I know about him?
The second child of Cappadocius.
Oh my.
You're meeting a lot of big shots today.
Well, I mean, you could too, you just have to go exploring.
Would Labiena actually realise that Japheth is actually... He wouldn't be... He would be her sire's sire.
Yes, you are descended from Japheth. Lazarus being his oldest child.
My child seems to be very closely attuned to the spiritual forces of this place. When we spoke with Lord Lazarus, he notes that the spirits around him seem to quiet, and now he wishes to learn if this will be a similar reaction to be occurring around Lamay.
On that note, do I also experience similar thing around Japhet?
You do not. Japheth himself seems to be kind of peaceful and calm, but he doesn't exert that fear over spirits that Lazarus does. So you definitely understand that he's a very powerful individual, but you're not sure why. Could be just age, which, in all honesty, is reason enough. He says, "Well, courage, sacrifice, and wisdom are all traits prized by my father. I will allow you to pass." And he takes a ritual knife and he does a short ritual, cuts into his hand, and takes the tip of the knife and dips it in the blood, and then he smears something on your head both of you, and you feel a flash of energy from the symbol to the gate, and you realize you can pass.
I bow my hat. Thank you, Lord Trevet.
Indeed. Thank you, my lord.
And he sits down and crosses one ankle over a leg and picks up the scroll he was reading and goes back to reading.
I look at my mother. Shall we?
Guys starts guiding the way further through the door.
You pass through the mystical barricade with ease. You again feel that flash of recognition as magic recognizes magic. And you step through, and the tunnel beyond looks exactly like the tunnel you just left. You descend down, down, down. The deeper you descend, you realize the chambers themselves are getting smaller, but they're getting more numerous. And they are becoming more packed. You smell acrid chemicals on top of the smoke of lamp oil. You see stacks of parchment, ink, supplies. Realize you're entering ritual and experimentation chambers are down here. The storage of corpses, storage of ritual chemicals, compounds, berries, all kinds of things are all down here. And the tunnels continue on, deeper and deeper and deeper into the earth. Karun, you... there are Cappadocians down here, but they must all be of at least some power level or intellectual level to be granted access through the barrier. And the voices of the spirits are getting less loud, but more angry. The ones that are down here are progressively getting more and more aggressive and whispering of violence and horrible threats. Threats that you very well know they could carry out, given half a chance. So, do you guys do anything special while you're down here other than look for Lamé?
Does the signs of experience that she sees around, is she able to get a glimpse on what's going on amongst the elders of the clan? What path the elders of the clan seem to be pursuing? She can the general direction that the clan might be going.
From these levels down here, they seem to be more geared around looking for rituals of some kind, perhaps. Looking for, like, links between different plants and death. Are there different plants that can be used to enhance a ritual? Like, why is Nightshade used in rituals? Well, because they found that it works on this stuff. There's a symbolism there. So there's lots of things like they're practicing with different things like that. Trying to find those spiritual links that enable magic to work.
Mm-hmm.
Between walking around, I relay what I sense about the spirits to my master. See if we can figure out if we can find somebody to tell my concerns to that. We have to check on these spirits because they might get out of hand.
Child, do not concern yourself with the spirits getting out of hand. This place has some of the most powerful necromancers on the world. The spirits here, as angry as they might get, As much as they may suffer, you'll never be able to overpower them. That is why they so freely do whatever they wish to the spirits.
He looks at you like he's really trying to believe you, but constantly hearing all those voices inside his head, he's not completely sure that he can trust what you're saying. But he will follow your lead. I believe we should find this lady you spoke of and get out of here as soon as possible before he shows up again.
Who? He who?
My tormentor.
Oh, the spirit of a friend, yes. One second, telephone.
All right. Well, okay. While they're doing that, Fawzia and Labiena, what are you guys doing? Any ideas?
I think Labiena is probably gonna. Like, she figures she would have studied all her notes and stuff for as long as she could, and decides she's probably gonna go for a bit of a wander herself.
After having checked over all her notes, and come to the conclusion that there's nothing more she can really do without, it just completely becoming irrational. Fazia will instead start mingling amongst will start talking to people as they do, trying to see if any, what the, trying to see as Gazia did, what the general subjects of people's research is. See if there's anyone else who's like at all that she can see who's looked into like necrosynthesis.
Well, most people are being kind of closed-mouthed about their research just because they hope to win some sort of prize, that being the rumor going around. But from what you can gather, let's make a charisma plus investigation roll. Let's see how much you gather.
Regular diff, I assume.
Yes, being that you're all among Cappadocians here, the clan curse is not a problem. Ah, 3 successes. You appear to be fairly unique. From what you were able to gather, it would appear that not many people have had the courage to go see the Zamisi and undergo the trials needed to pick up the knowledge that you possess to practice this synthesis.
Excellent. Um, let me see. I suppose for want of much else to do, one thing she'd be doing, just to pass time, would be looking around the city itself and just sort of like examining like the way it's built and like any potential, any like writings on the walls or whatever. Just try and get a sense of this, all told, rather unusual place.
Well, you get the impression the upper levels have were carved kind of organically over the years. The upper levels themselves, the first level itself, seems more water worn than carved. But as you get deeper in, it's very clear that the deeper tunnels were carved out by hand. There was no city planning as such. There are a couple of numbered chambers, and as you reach the third level, you do find there is one chamber that seems kind of purpose built for education. And you do eventually reach the fourth level and the mystic door. And the old gentleman sitting there reading with a stack of scrolls and a lamp, reading by lamplight. Do you approach?
Exact. Yeah, she'll like sort of slowly approach, glance over at the door, and just ask, "Is access being restricted?"
Well, that depends. And then he just looks at you.
If permitted, I would like to examine some of the rooms themselves below. This whole construct is rather fascinating.
Bravery and wonder are traits appreciated by my father. Of course, you may pass. And
Thank you.
he performs the same short ritual, smears a symbol on your forehead with a bloody knife. You feel the recognition of magic, and you may pass the door, the gate.
She does so.
You realize now that's a very simple test that they have put together to see
Yeah.
who's brave enough to pursue the mysteries.
And has the slightest reason. Isn't just like, I don't know, just want to walk to places.
Yeah, literally any reason would do. You just have to be brave enough to come and ask.
Though really, if they wanted it to be a real test of courage, they should have had Lamia instead of Japheth up there.
I think Jafat is worse.
But yeah, so Fazil will head on in and again start walking through various
Right.
chambers,
You
making sure not to lose track of where the exit is.
you see many of the same things that was already described. The storage rooms. You smell the chemicals. Make a perception plus alertness roll for me, sight based.
What's diff?
6. You hear them before you see them, and you turn a corner around a curve, and down the hallway, you see Gazia and Karun. And you hear the voice drift back along the tunnel. Have you seen... I'm looking for LeMay. Have you seen her? And the Cappadocian answers, oh, well, that one earlier tonight was a little bit deeper down. I wouldn't disturb her if I were you, but, hey. And then they kind of shrug and go back to what they were doing. You're 30 or 40 feet behind them.
Curiosity caught. Fazia's gonna try and shadow them a bit. Trying not to be like, she's not gonna like be super obviously stealthy, but trying not to draw attention to herself. Just follow a bit of a distance.
All right. Yeah, you're not trying to get too close. So, uh, Karun and Kazia, you do eventually receive some directions where she was last seen. You head down her way. She's about 6 or 7 layers down, and you eventually come across a chamber. She's in a chamber, and on the wall is carved a statue of a woman. She has no face, but you can tell by the outline it's supposed to be a woman. And in tableau around the woman is some generic like animals that are bowed in supplication to her. And LeMay seems to be involved in some sort of meditative ritual. She's literally sitting on a bed of thick iron nails that, if you can see, are actually partially penetrated into her skin. She is nude.
I go down on my knees and sit in a meditative pose and wait for her to finish.
Likewise, guys is going to wait for the woman to finish her prayers. But as she looks at the icon, does she recognize anything about it?
Beyond the obvious symbolism of a either a ruler or somebody who commands animals, perhaps. This is not something you've heard of. This type of figure. There's a lot of, yes, you have heard of like mother fertility figures, of course. And it could be one of those, perhaps. But that combined with whatever ritual she's doing leads you to believe there's something else that she's doing. Something else going on.
She's going to quietly wait and examine her.
After about 30 minutes or so, she puts her hands on the ground and pushes herself up off the nails, unfolds her legs, and stands up. She puts her robes back on, and then turns to look at you, the two of you, there. And she's like, "Oh, yes, I remember you. Did you ever give Lazarus my message?"
Yes, it's because of that I'm here, in fact. He. Uh, my child would like to speak to you at the meeting that we had with Lazarus.
And she looks down at Karun, who's sitting cross-legged on the stone floor. She kind of shrugs her shoulders. She's like, "Well, I'm not doing anything right now, so what do you want to talk about?"
First, first let me introduce myself. I'm Karun, Lady Lame. When we were approached by Lazarus when we were looking for him, I noticed a peculiar thing. He had the ability to quiet the voices that I'm hearing about the angry spirits around this place. And I was wondering if that was something that only he can do or those of his line can do. But that was the original reason for me looking for you. But when I reached this place, the setup has got me thinking, is that the goddess that you worship? Looking about these tales around here, is she a fertility goddess?
She's considering what order to answer all these questions. She says, "If you were curious about what he was doing, why didn't you go ask him?"
I was curious if you also had the ability to quiet the voices that are constantly tormenting me.
Why would you want them quieted?
Because at this moment, I cannot do anything to help them, and they are hindering me at this moment. I need to think straight to be able to help them if I want to. It,
Why would you want to
and
help them?
because I feel it's my duty to do so.
Why?
I my my view on that is to make sure that the human soul passes from this world to the underworld where it belongs. And I try to alleviate all their pain so they can move on. Isn't that what we are supposed to look for? The mysteries of that?
Death has many mysteries, but why would you assume it's worthwhile to help souls move on?
Well, my original reason before I found my calling might be a little selfish. I am tormented by the spirit of the first person I killed. I have struck a bargain with him. I will help the restless dead, and he will leave me alone. But over the course of the years, and under the guidance of my master, I found a calling in helping mortals advance from their birth to their afterlife, and assuring that those mortals reach the afterlife to be judged by the way they live their life is a worthy calling. So, what started as a selfish reason to save myself have become my life mission.
So it's a selfish reason then.
Excuse me, I did not understand your meaning.
You only care for selfish reasons. That's the only reason you do this.
At the beginning, I did, but after seeing a baby being born, growing up, becoming a toddler, then a child, then an adult, and then being with them in their final moment and helping the restless dead resolve all their issues to move on to what awaited in the next world has brought forth a new purpose for me. I found that a lot more rewarding. That's what I seek to do for the rest of my existence, if I'm allowed to do so.
Okay? So why do you seek the mysteries of death then?
To be able to know and guide, to be able to know what makes a ghost, what creates a ghost, what event that happened in his life that will create a ghost.
Who cares?
But aren't we supposed to find that out? What is your take, if I may ask, on the mysteries of that? If I may ask,
Death has no mystery. Death is death. What matters
he
is how you meet death, how you bring it, how you manipulate it. Let me ask you a question. What's the purpose of life? You're always asking yourself about the purpose of death. What's the purpose of life?
Purpose of life. To create a better future for your family and those that you leave behind, for your community. That's what I believe is the purpose of life.
So the purpose of life is to serve life, or to serve your community, to serve somebody else.
Isn't that what why all humans want in the end?
Who
To
cares about
get
humans?
but life and death is mostly tied to human. Our research is mostly tied to the death of humans.
So you're saying if I killed you now, nobody would care?
Some people might care, but
Okay, so you just told yourself a lie then.
at that, he is totally confused at this moment, so he will just bow his head and stay quiet after that. Really thinking about what she just said, trying to figure out what she was trying to teach him. I'm sorry, but my understanding of the mysteries of life and death is not advanced to your level, yes, yet, Mistress Lamia. I'm sorry I may disappoint you with my answer, so please do not take offense.
Like most men, you have no idea about the purpose of life.
But I'm willing to learn.
Do you think you're going to learn about the purpose of life by silencing ghosts?
You're right, I will not learn the purpose of life, but s- it's a job that somebody has to do to protect life, because otherwise the rest is that will interfere with those living, bring harm to them. I may not understand life at this moment, but I do aspire to one day to be able to learn about it. While I'm still studying under my sire, and I look at my sire.
She reaches down and she grabs you by your jaw. And she picks you up physically. Picks you up onto your feet. Not really caring if she's inflicting physical damage or not on your undead form. And this is not pleasant. It's very painful. And she puts eye to eye with you. She says, "I do not care." And then she lets you go and she says Lazarus is 2 levels down, 3 chambers over.
While I was close to her, did she have the ability to quiet the spirits around me?
They did not grow quieter when she was talking to you or near you.
I look at her and say, "Thank you for your answer. You just answered my first question. You do not have the ability to quiet the spirits." and I bid you a good evening. And I look at my sire.
Um, Guy, Gazia, I would need you to roll a quick wits plus etiquette roll. Difficulty 4. 7 dice. If you don't have it written down, that's good enough. Yeah, he just insulted a fucking elder.
Kaz is going to quickly step forward, place her hand on the back of his neck, and gently start trying to like pull him a bit further away from Lamia, like a scolded child.
Um, with that many successes, you realize you have a moment to exert some sort of punishment before she does it.
Yeah, okay, she's just going to wear over to her child, and she's going to proceed to. Would she have a weapon with her?
Oh yeah, nobody took anything from you.
Okay, yes. She's going to proceed to uh, stab him through the neck.
Okay. I need a willpower roll from you at difficulty 8 to reflect the flaw that you took. You would have 8 dice for this. All right. You managed to psych yourself up for this. Seven dice, whatever, doesn't matter. You got a success, that's all that matters. Yeah, so you psych yourself up and you stab your child through the neck.
Aiming to cut his ability to speak.
Right. Karun, she hasn't punished you like this for a long time. And she just stabbed you straight through the throat. I need you to make a self-control roll at difficulty 6. And Ghazi, I need you to make a conscience roll. You have 5 dice for this at difficulty 3 because you did this to protect your child. Alright? Yeah, you literally did this. You've inflicted hideous damage to him to save his life.
Difficulty 6, you said, right?
Yes, diff 6. Self-control, you'd have 4 dice for this. I'd say at least 4. 2 successes, you're good to go. Even as the steel enters your neck, you realize, I fucked up. That's thought number 1. And thought number 2 is, this is my punishment in order to save me.
I take it without trying to move a muscle. Just bear the pain. Just take it all in.
Right? You take 3 lethal damage as her blade cuts deep through your vocal cords, through your trachea, through the meat and flesh, muscle of your neck. And then it pops out the other side, where she kind of yanks it sideways to finish the cut. And then she can wipe it off and resheath the blade.
Child, I forbid you to heal from this injury until you learn how to speak properly with your elders.
I nod my head.
LeMay looks at you, nods her approval, and leaves the chamber and goes about her own business.
Guys, I let out a breath of what would be the word? Relief at the. As it seems like Lamia is not seen to seek any further punishment upon him. And as soon as she's out, she's going to turn to her child and she's going to run her finger over the injury that she caused his throat while frowning in sadness and um, disappointment. Yeah, child, why did you make me do this?
I'm gonna use Auspex 4 to tell her that don't become sad. It was what I deserved for my disobedience.
Maybe. But this cutting you cuts me as well, even if not physically.
For that, I'm sorry, Mother. I will try better next time.
Please do.
All right, Karun, I need you to roll your self control at difficulty 6, because the spirit within of your friend who's haunting you tells you. He says, reach out and touch the nails, Karun. Right, you cannot stop yourself from doing it. You reach out and you stick your hand on the bed of nails. Roll your perception empathy at difficulty 4. What? 6. I'm sorry. Got to take that perception difficulty into account. Diff 6. You do not glean any information from this. You just feel the nails penetrate the skin of your hand, and you just pull them out, and you're like, okay. You understand why your friend wanted you to do this, but you unfortunately cannot bring yourself to activate the power. So, do you guys head out to go find Lazarus?
Deixar wishes to see him.
Um, there's actually no use. Because what he learned from Lamia, he started to understand maybe he might need to bear this affliction that he has. So he will shake his head. No.
All right. Falzia, give me a Dex plus Stealth roll. It's Diff 6.
Oh god, I'd almost forgotten that I was swallowing.
All right. Yeah, so you hear them discuss that, and as he says no, you're like, okay, and you duck your head back and you leave the area. Now, you, of course, you and Labiena are free to explore, so was there anyone in particular you wanted to go see or talk to?
I think it get.
Actually, before you answer that question, I need you to make me a I need Falzia to make me a self-control roll at difficulty 7.
Oh boy.
All right? The thought occurs to you, if they're both down here, that means all of their notes and stuff are unprotected up there.
Ooh.
Olivia attempts to, without making too much noise, get some distance.
However, you do not give in to the urging of your beast to go vandalize them. You can still choose to do it, but if you had failed this, you would have unconsciously listened to your beast and headed directly there.
Yeah. Fazia plans to do it, but she's going to be a bit more careful about it. She's going to make sure not to let them see that she's followed them so far. Just sort of try to sink back into the shadows a bit away, get some distance, then start heading up.
Right.
Um,
So, Karun and Gazia, you guys were done for the night. You were going to head back to your chambers, is my understanding, correct?
Yes.
All right. So I need opposed dexterity plus athletics rolls. Dice pool for this is going to be 5 if you don't have a dice pool for it. This is literally a test to see who walks faster and gets there quicker.
let me just check something. Can I spend some blood on this?
Yeah, sure, if you want to. Okay. You speed walk up the tunnels, back to the chambers, make your way to where she's at. Call high or low for me.
Hi.
Okay, there is nobody in her chambers.
I'm just going to quickly glance around. Do I see anything that's like out in the open?
You see her bag, a box, that is shut with a very simple latch. You think you might be able to get it open without them telling, but it might take a little bit of luck, and you're not sure how much time you have before they return to the chambers. So you could chance it.
Fuzzy will just go with the bag, and just see if there's anything in there.
There are some clothes, a few ritual implements, and a few keepsakes, and some money.
Here's a question: do they seem to have any ink on them in these possessions?
Yeah, she would have ink.
Would it be possible to open the box, not properly open it, but get just a tad open and then just splash some of the ink in there?
Yeah, so you find she's got a bag of her writing supplies, and the ink bottle is capped with cork. And typically, what you would do is you would take it and you would just add a little bit of oil to it and stir it up, because the oil gets sucked into the stopper. So you take it. It's kind of thick. It's not really good for writing, but you could just take the stopper out and just kind of throw it in the bag.
Oh no, my intention was to try and slip some of it into the box, which might have some of her actual notes in it.
Yes, but to do that, you would have to. You think you would have to. It's a very simple lock, and you think you could probably pick
Okay,
it, but
but
it's going to take you a
it
moment.
it doesn't have enough give for me to like open it a crack.
No,
or,
no, it does not. Um,
Okay.
It does need to be somewhat protective of the elements.
Okay.
It's not super tight, but it's got give to it, but not enough to pick it up and like throw something underneath it. Maybe a piece of paper or something, but not a whole ink bottle. No.
With a sigh, she will obey caution and let it be.
So you walk out after having done a quick tear through of her stuff, and you turn the corner and leave. And just after you disappear from sight, Gazia and Karun turn the corner and get back to her room. Nothing seems to be out of place. She didn't really disturb too much. She just did a quick run through of your stuff and then walked away, leaving it pretty much undisturbed. So I'm going to say there's really no way to tell that she was there. Of course, it is understood that getting caught messing with another Cappadocian's notes and stuff is a severe breach of hospitality and good behavior, and that's why everyone's pretty comfortable leaving stuff basically unsecured or with the barest of protections.
And why I decided to play it safe.
Okay, Labiena, you haven't had a chance to say much. What are you doing?
Well, I think basically that entire time she was probably off on her own, so to speak, just exploring the compound.
Right? Do you undergo the trial of curiosity?
Yeah, I figure at some point she'd come across the door and be curious enough to walk up, and if stopped by the person, say, well,
Right? Well, the person, when you come up to it, is another man. Come on, Internet, cooperate with me. Trying to find what he looks like so I can describe him a little bit. Do 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 do. Cappadocius. It's not Cappadocius himself. I just need list of his children. Caius. The man sitting in front of the door when you get there during one of the days is pretty short. Smaller than you, slight of build. Almost kind of looks like a teenager, like in size terms. But his skin is so dry and mummified, he basically looks like bones held together by papyrus. And with a pair of bright green eyes staring out of this hideous skull. And this creature too is reading through a pile of scrolls that is being kept near the chair. And it seems to be completely relaxed. And as you approach, you see the eyes look up at you, and then dismiss you and look back at the scroll. What do you do?
well, at this point she's trying to figure out, well, she's not sure, like not 100% sure whether or not the man sitting there is actually guarding the door or not, or if he's just sitting there for the sake of sitting there.
He's made no move to say or do anything to indicate one way or the other.
Yeah. As such, she is curious enough about the door, so she has, at this point, has begun, like, she is approaching the door, and when she gets there, she obviously stops, and she's just looking at it, very curious, like.
So yeah, it's one of the very few doors that you actually see here, and you can tell the door itself moves easily. You can push it physically and it opens. But there's a mystic barrier that's preventing you from walking through the doorway. You push on it and you can feel it reject you.
Obviously, as the moment she feels that, she's become even more curious. And at this point, she'll turn to the man sitting on the
All right. Make an intelligence plus
Presumably
politics roll for
stone.
me.
Okay.
Your difficulty for this is going to be 6. Right, yeah, you have no idea who this is.
Okay. Essentially, she's going to look at him and say, "Excuse me, any idea what's behind this door?"
The voice addresses you in Phrygian. Do you speak Phrygian? I don't believe you do.
I don't believe so.
Right. You recognize it as something very similar to Greek. And when you don't respond, he switches to Greek, which I assume is the language you were talking to him in. The voice is very dry. Very, sounds as if he hasn't drunk anything in 100 years. And it just kind of comes out. It's the deeper levels, of course.
Ah. So, how does one get past?
By walking through. You notice he's let the scroll dip, that he's talking to you. He's not paying attention to his scroll anymore.
Anna's like, okay, so you're telling me I can just walk straight through this, barrier?
If you have the power. Why would you want to?
To look around.
Would you say you have to know what's behind there?
Yes, I do.
Is it driving you crazy?
I wouldn't say crazy, but it's got me curious.
Well, that's good enough for me. It's good enough for my father. And he stands up, shakes a little bit, and like dust falls off of him. And he kind of creakily walks up to you. The joints and everything look like loose, like he's all about to shake apart. And he takes a little tiny knife out of his belt, which is just a rope, and stabs it into his palm. And the thickest, most appetizing blood you've ever smelled drifts. The scent drifts up to your nose, and fangs immediately descend as the sheer pungency and age of what you're smelling arouses your beast of wow, just unbelievable. And he smears it around on the blade, and he does a short ritual, and he smears it on your head, and you feel a flash of power as the gate recognizes the symbol on your head. And then he says, "My father appreciates curiosity in the face of danger."
Thank you.
And he
She'll
sits
give
down
him
on
a
his little stool
head-
and goes back to reading.
She'll proceed to walk through.
All right. It's more of the same, just deeper. You have heard the explanation several times by now, so you know what's down here. The levels go on, deeper and deeper, carved further and further into the rock. You looking for anything in particular, or anyone?
No one specific, but she might just keep an eye out and see if anyone she passes might seem familiar to her in some way, whether it be she's met them before or whether she's had them
Nope.
heard them described.
You do hear your sire's voice at one point, though. He's down here.
Oh yeah. Would she be able to sort of listen and pinpoint which chamber he's in?
Sure. Yeah, you, are you trying to stay quiet and hidden, or are you just walking up?
She'd just walk up.
Right. You just walk up, and he is speaking to a man who is, again, quite short. He has long hair. The top of his skull is bald. He has what they call a skullet. Top of his head is bald, but the ring of hair around the sides and back of his head is very long and very white, very stringy. He has a long white beard. And he, again, appears to be quite small. Kind of hunched over a little bit. There's a maniacal look in his eyes. Just fanatic. And your sire is somewhat subservient in front of him. And he is speaking about the practice of having a ancestor deity watching over the house in Rome. How long do you stand out there and listen?
Well, I guess all she wanted to do was to just get confirmation that it was who she thought she heard.
It is indeed.
And as they are
Yep.
in conversation, she doesn't want to interrupt.
Roll
and if
your
they
intelligence plus
haven't-
politics for me. This difficulty's 5. Yeah, he's speaking to Cappadocius himself.
Aha. I mean, all she was really going to do was once she identified her sire and realizing he was talking to someone, regardless of who it was, and if they hadn't noticed her right away, she was just going to turn around and keep walking, keep exploring.
Yep, you are free to do that. You turn on your heel, you're like, oh, Mom, my sire's in there, he's talking. Okay, no, I recognize that, Oh, fuck! I know who he's talking to, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you turn around and you get the fuck out of there without interrupting. You realize you're actually sweating blood a little bit. There's just a light sheen. You're like, oh man, and you kind of rub your head and then you pull your hand away and you're like, when did that start happening? Whew. Yeah, so you continue on. There are many, many, many tunnels and many chambers. So you can stop now or you can chance getting lost.
Yeah. Well, I think she's had a pretty good look around, and when she feels like she's getting far enough away, she'll probably just turn around and go back.
All right. As you pass Caius Koine, he looks at you as you pass and he says, clean yourself up. And he goes back to his scroll. So, a couple of weeks have passed.
Oh, right, yeah.
It is
I
time
know
to
who you were talking
feed.
about then.
Each of you needs to feed.
It took me a second to realize who you were talking about then. How many blood down are we now?
It's been 2 weeks, so a lot. You are given the opportunity to descend into the valley to feed carefully. There are corpses and slaves here in the compound that you have found, or there are, of course, always the option of animals. If you could palate such thin and unappetizing vermin. So let's start with Gazia. Gazia, how do you want to feed?
Um, is there like provided feeding?
There are slaves and prisoners of war who have been brought and are being kept in cells deep in the caverns. Um, they don't care too much about them because they're just going to be used as test subjects anyways. But they do want, if you're going to kill them, they want you to be killing them with a purpose in mind, not just to feed.
She's not going to be killing them. She's going to be looking for those that look to be healthy, the ones that looks to be less used. She's going to be feeding very conservatively.
Okay, that's no problem, right? We're not going to make any kind of like dice rolls or nothing like that. Um, Karoon, how about you? We'll come back to Karoon. Fawzia,
Oh,
Labiena.
oh.
Oh, are you
Um,
there?
Yeah, I forgot I muted my mic. An out of character question. Does my forbiddance forbid me from drinking from corpses?
No, it does not.
Then I will drink from corpses then.
Right? Um, yeah, and there are a large number of Cappadocians who do that, who prefer to drink from corpses, given that since they really don't want to kill if they can help it. A lot of the neonates do that. They'll feed from the corpses. Fawzia and Labiena?
Fazia will just feed on prisoners, and I will be right back.
All right.
Oh, well, Labiena will do what she normally does. But, yes, I mean, if there were no other sort of groups of people that they could otherwise feed from, she'd just go around, try and find someone in a dark alley and do a usual thing.
Yeah, they've well, the people of the valley are actually accustomed to supplying the
Oh,
Cappadocians with tithes of blood. So
yeah, I just remembered that because they lived, yeah, in knowledge of each other.
yeah, so feeding's not that big of a problem. It's just how did you want to do it? So, all right, that being taken care of, it's getting to be time. It's been several weeks. You guys have been exploring very thoroughly, talking to the other Cappadocians, learning about their experiments, seeing what all they have done over the past couple of over their centuries, and you realize they're basically going from bottom up, working their way up, and Gazia, Karoon, Labiena, and Fawzia are getting called down to the lower levels to speak about necromancy and their experiments and what they're doing. It's time.
That is going to make herself ready to promptly attend.
Get
I'm gonna
Labiena
follow
as
my
well.
sire.
Right.
I'm gonna follow my sire.
Okay, so you guys head down, um, deep into the chambers, bringing your notes and any examples you may have, ritual implements, things like that. You're set up side by side in chambers. Eventually, the old man with the scarlet hair, the white beard, and attended by Caius Coine, the small, almost mummified, jitterbuggery figure, come up. They attend to Gazia first. They step into the chamber where you guys are standing with your notes and everything. And as they enter, what do you guys do?
Is there like any form of etiquette that be expected for the presentation?
Yes, it is expected that you would acknowledge him as your overfather, your father. He expects obeisance and reverence, but he also expects honesty and intelligence. He seems to react, you would have heard this, very, very badly to people who come across as uncouth or unintelligent and unable to express their research and thoughts. He can forgive ignorance. It's poor intelligence that he can't forgive, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Not knowing something is different from being able to learn something.
So they enter the chamber where you're standing, and your only sign that they're there is a scrape, just a light noise. So where you turn around and see them standing there.
She's going to give a deferential bow.
I follow suit.
Oh, the father had been waiting for you. Thank you for joining us. I eager for the opportunity to show to you and the rest of our clan the avenues of research that me and my child have been pursuing.
He
Should
gestures. He speaks without speaking. Doesn't seem to ever actually open his mouth. You just hear what he wants in your head. And you know he wants you to begin your presentation. But first, how are you guys dressed? Describe to me your dress, how you're set up inside the chamber, what kind of implements you might have.
I'd say that Gaz is dressed on something that would be resembling the robes that she had in life as a priestess. Uh, Likely somewhat more decayed, perhaps purposely made so in order to represent the forces of entropy that have since taken her since her embrace. Should be proceeding to read a few of her notes, having them at hand.
Right. He wants you to proceed.
How would you like me to go about this?
Uh,
Like, give an
Describe what you're doing. If is it a ritual or a path power? Describe the necromantic associations. Like, why does this work with necromancy? and maybe talk about how she discovered it. So you were going to use a path power from the from the path of ash, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Going to be using the Touch of the Nether. She's going to proceed to reach out uh, into the world of the undead, into the through the shroud, through the veil. She's going to be proceeding to try to reach into and touch the ghosts that permeate the catacombs.
All right. You have 10 dice to roll. You need you to roll 10 dice at difficulty 7 and spend a point of willpower. All right. So here's what you see as you spend your point of blood because it is powered off of your blood. And you feel the blood itself like almost evaporate within you, and as it does, reality begins to waver around you. You feel this shroud is thin here, very thin, and it's almost like if you close your eyes with your left eye, you see the real world. With your right eye, you see the spirit world. And as you turn and look at Karun, there is a spirit with its hand on his shoulder, whispering in his ear. And you sense the spirit is about to do something very nasty to him.
She's going to proceed to slap away the spirit from his ear.
Alright. No need to make a roll. It actually doesn't realize you're there. It doesn't realize you've manifested in the spirit world until you shove it away, and it turns to look at you with surprise on its face. Karun, you sense kind of that the shock of your friend has been physically impacted. And there is he shrieks, "How dare you!" And you hear this, Gazi. For the first time, you see the look of rage as this creature, blackness swirls at its chest where its heart should be. And it roars at you, and phantasmal force streams at your face and begins to impact you. I need you to roll your fortitude, which would be however many dice that is. Somewhere between 3 and 4, I would think, if you don't have it written down.
Mine?
Yeah.
I put it at 1.
Okay, so 1. Roll your fortitude. Alright. Fortunately, he rolled like shit. 3 10s and 2 1s. But
Can I help her?
no, you cannot. This phantasmal force streams against your face in the underworld, and you realize, yes, I can affect the underworld. Oh, fuck me, they can also hit me too while I'm here. And you feel pain as the skin around your face begins to be stripped off by this force of spiritual anger. And you see, everybody in the chamber sees your skin begin to be flecked off like you're standing in a violent sandstorm, and it's impacting and tearing little chunks of your flesh off. You take 1 aggravated damage. And I need you to roll your courage at difficulty 4 because you realize you can end this power at any moment. And as you're down there, partially in the underworld, Gazia, you see this interaction. Now that you're standing there, you can hear the screams, hollers, the absolute cacophony that your child has had to endure for the past several weeks. It assaults your ears. You see ghosts begin to stream through these caverns, crawling along the walls and the ceilings, emerging literally from the floor. You can almost see the spiritual chains that bind them here, where they cannot leave. And almost all of them, the vast majority of them, are swirling with horrible, horrible, abyssal dark energy.
Seeing her face getting teared apart by the ghostly powers, she's going to proceed to end the ability, cutting her connection from the shroud, from beyond the shroud.
So, just like that, poof, you flick back to the solely physical world. Karun, all you saw was just out of nowhere. You heard the roar and the yell, and then flecks of her face started getting stripped off. How do you react to this?
First off, I believe he will be startled, but Karun is an intelligent guy, so he might be able to quickly figure out exactly what happened.
You are a very intelligent man, and I think you figured that out very quickly.
So he's gonna say, "So you finally hurt them."
Yes, although hurting them is just a taste of what can be done. Much more they can be interacted as if they are once again among the living, and they of course, as has been demonstrated, she motions to her face. They can do likewise with us, and they have a great deal of abilities at their disposal that they did not have when they are among the living. Abilities that are unequal, that are different from anything that I have ever seen anyone of our kind possessing.
But also, they have weaknesses that they did not have while they were alive. It seems to be that those that they were close to, those that were dear to them in life, either items or people, can become anchors for them, for those that have become ghosts. Because during our research, we have found out that those that does not had people or things that they hold really dear to them or were at peace with their death does not become ghosts. And by resolving these anchors, you will be able to get rid of problematic ghosts without having to resort to violence or other means.
Yes, a connection between the realms of the underworld and the material realm. Something that goes through the shroud and holds them here. Something that connects the living and the dead. A way to get to the ghost without having to face the ghost itself.
And it seems to just like we are animated, driven, and consume blood for our daily activities. They drive on emotions. Each one seeks a different emotions. That particular part is what I'm actually researching at the moment. What drives
How did you
what?
learn this?
Since the night of my embrace, I've had one particular gift. I can hear them all the time. I do not need powers like Messiah to be able to hear them. I can hear them naturally. So it has come to me since day one. I'll be able to hear ghosts, hear them speak to me, just like I'm hearing you speak to me. Cappadocius, and he bows his head in respect.
Yes, but how did you learn this?
By resolving some of their lingering thoughts, their attachments, speaking with them. There once was this little kid, a girl, barely 5 years old, that was killed, and I figured out quickly why she haunted that particular part of the fields, because that was where all the other kids played. So she was attracted to the emotion the happiness that the kids bring to her. She feed on them. She grew powerful when she was around death. Little by little, I start investigating different kinds. Ghosts of murderers, ghosts of people that got killed in violence. What triggered them? What made them grow stronger? What emotions? I have not completely mastered that part of my research yet, but it's something I'm looking forward to delve further into.
The two of them share a look and then turn back to look at you guys. How did you discover this power? And they're speaking to Gazia.
My discovery of this power came through my studies between the connections between the living and the dead. I have long thought that to truly understand death, one must understand life. So I sought ways to help the living or those inhabiting the material world, like ourselves, to be able to reach out and physically interact with those on the other side. A way to something that reached this child, something that went through it. Through that research, I have learned how to transform my body into something that can do likewise, reach through the child into the other world, at the danger of exposing myself to that other world.
They look at each other, and for the first time, you hear Caius Koine speak. He says, "I don't think she knows." And Cappadocius nods in agreement. And the two of them look back at you. Clearly, they have seen something in you that you are overlooking. And they go back. Caius responding somewhat semi-verbally in a very ancient language. Then they finish, and Caius looks at you guys, and he says, If you find any more with the gift of what he has, and he points to Karun, you are to send them here. And you, and he says to Gazia, you, this is not something you could discover on your own. When you return home, beware of outside influence. There is something else going on.
I make sure to keep my eyes open for anything.
They nod and turn around and walk out. Go immediately across. Now, Fazia and Labiena, the two of you have heard this whole thing. Like, this isn't like you guys are going to a soundproof laboratory. So you've been standing there listening to this whole thing. And you are the next ones down.
Fazia will step up with her prepared materials. She probably at some point during this period negotiated either she probably at some point negotiated getting a couple prisoners to use as demonstrations. And she's going to, after a brief introduction, going through all the formalities of it, waiting for permission to speak, etc., etc. She is going to give a detailed explanation of her experiments into a more literal binding of death to life, of necrosynthesis, of she's going to show the effects that can occur from attempting to bond living flesh to dead flesh and dead flesh to living flesh, of how she'll demonstrate. If I'm allowed to take a bit of a slight liberty here, she'll demonstrate a way to temporarily. She hasn't quite been able to make it last long term yet. Induce an almost zombie-like state in a living being that can be reversed. And likewise how to use with strategic application of living flesh, bolster the risen corpses in their own tasks, with some discussion of implications regarding these findings. So, for example, noting on what this could possibly mean in terms of vital essence or what have you, and ways that these findings could be potentially further be investigated for further benefits.
So, Kaya speaks to you and he says, so, Fazia, when you introduce this flesh into the person, what does it do for our rituals when they pass? Does it make them stronger? Easier? Does it open up new avenues of investigation into the function of the taboo or the function of the authority in our discipline?
Well, with the taboo, I believe it has quite a lot Quite immense potential there. What is more taboo than quite literally joining dead flesh with the living flesh? And from that answer, she will then elaborate in ways that, out of character, I can't quite pull together yet. Sort of, yeah. She will reaffirm various like benefits that she's been able to observe from this application of like finding that, for example, putting living words. Sorry, my brain's gone a bit. The worst time. Do you get what I mean, though?
They look to Labiena and they say, "Have you been helping her in these experiments?"
Indeed, I have been. So I've been assisting her with everything just as she has been explaining it.
And what have you learned
and
from these?
Well, I've been sort of looking at it from a slightly different perspective in that I'm looking at the links between obviously the dead and the living, and how one can influence the other. Now, as well as being able to look at it in terms of the animation and non-animation of other corpses, I've also been looking at it in terms of the animation of our own corpses. So the fact that we can, in a sense, animate and unanimate at will. Now, one thing I've discovered is there is only one thing thus far that I've seen that connects everything, and that's our blood. So something happens between when someone dies and when they are reanimated. In terms of us, that charges the blood. That is something else that I've learned and am continuing to experiment with.
Before you leave, I wish you to go to chamber 1652A and read the research there. You are duplicating many paths of thought that have already been pursued. You should read them, read the documents in that chamber, and make sure you understand what has been written there. Fawzia, your line of inquiry is very interesting. It seems you pursue this without a true goal in mind. The melding of dead and living flesh. Have you tried to meld... Oh. Is it possible to meld dead, undead, and living without creating a ghoul?
This is something that I will. This is something that I will have to examine.
Additionally, I like to see investigation on if these experiments can be used in rituals and leave the subjects alive. If the use of the taboo to, say, place the bone of the leg bone into a human and keep them alive, if that would meld the souls, the spirits of these two subjects, can we, by changing the physical, change the soul?
Understood. These two subjects will be among my foremost areas of focus in the future.
Now, lastly, you have headquartered yourselves in Rome, have you not?
Yes.
Yes, we have.
And your sire is Septimus Nero, is it not?
It is.
He has a very interesting theory that by harnessing the spirit energy of the ancestor gods in Rome, one could, in theory, guide and direct all the inhabitants who pay attention to those guardian spirits. You are to give him all aid.
I will do as you ask.
Lastly, should a Cappadocian come to you and claim to be a descendant of the Lamé and offer to you a bargain of protection in exchange for research, you are to accept it.
I will.
And he looks at Fawzia.
I will do so.
Good. They don't... To your eyes, they don't really seem terribly impressed by your demonstration. But they didn't really seem all that impressed by Gazia's either. It's definitely an interesting thought process. They then leave the chamber without another word and head down to the next region and begin talking to the next group of unfortunate individuals to be subjected to their scrutiny.
At this point, I think Labiena will turn to Fawzia and be like, well, could have been worse.
Yes.
So, your two groups, you emerge from your chambers at about the same time. Having packed up everything and getting everything together, and you're staring at each other from across the hall, eye to eye.
Did I hear what was spoken in the next chamber?
Oh, yeah, you guys heard
Labiena?
everything to each other. You heard it all.
So I believe during that time, I would have scribbled down on a piece of parchment my initial understanding of how to affect spirits, manipulate them, my understanding of their emotions, what drives them, and I will approach Labiana and I would tell her, regardless of how our sires treat each other, I wish that our relationship will be more beneficial to the clan as a whole. Listening to what the task we have been given, I present you this, my initial research into the way to affect spirits. And I present her my notes.
Labiena will, excuse me, Labiena will sort of look down at them for a moment. Look back up at Karun and say, "Thank you. Appreciate that." As she sort of reaches out to sort of take them from Karun.
I'm looking
As it
forward. Yeah. Yes, continue.
I was going to say, as it happens, I have done a small amount, well, I've gained a small amount of understanding of it myself. Though it does actually interest me to learn a little more.
Uh,
In return, there must be some information I can provide you with.
I just want to strike a deal with you that we will always strive to beat each other at these meetings in our research into the spirit. Because you have been given a task that you cannot refuse. So let's make it a little competition between us. Fair competition between us. That way, every time we will bolster each other's knowledge. And it will be to the benefit of the clan. Remember what I said when we first met? Knowledge without applying it is just information.
You have a deal?
And I bow my hat and return to my sire.
And as you go to walk away, Laviena, the notes in your hand, the ink begins to run and smear and drip off of the parchment onto the ground.
Do I notice that?
You do not. You've turned away and you walk back across the hall, and but Gazia, you see Labiena stop and look at the notes with her back to you, and you kind of see her like tense up a little bit. Like, what the fuck is this? Are you fucking with me?
Kansas is going to curiously try to peer into Labiena's mind to see what she's seeing.
All right, spend a point of willpower and roll your. What's your current willpower, Labiena? 6 or 7?
I think, let me just double check, is 6.
All right. Roll your. Roll. I think it's 9 dice. Difficulty 6.
So Labiena hasn't seen anything like this before at all, has she?
No, you have not. All right. So you got 5 successes. You get some deep thoughts here. So what's Labiena's first surface thought?
As far as thoughts go, as soon as she sees what's happening to the ink, obviously she's puzzled. Like, why is it doing that?
Right?
That's the first immediate thought.
Beyond the first thought. What's she thinking? A little
Beyond
bit
the
deeper,
first
next
thought,
level.
yeah, she's all of a sudden she's starting to go into the possibilities as to why it's doing it, and considering what they were talking about, that it was to do with spirits, she's actually pondering the possibility that, I don't know, it's possibly there may be spirits here, they may be influencing it somehow.
All right,
But
Labiena,
it's
roll
more of
your
a
perception plus awareness at difficulty 8 for me. You have aspects too, right?
yeah.
Roll, actually, before you roll your awareness, roll your perception empathy at diff 8 for me. You need 3 successes, but it's possible. So, Gazia, it's you're detecting a storm of emotions of, is he screwing with me? Because you see the thought in her head of all the ink draining off of the notes, and then the immediate thought underneath that is excitement at a partnership, and then thoughts that they might be under attack by spirits that do not like Karun or do not like her. The thoughts underneath that are both excitement and disappointment at their performance. She thought that they would go much better. They'd be much more excited, especially for Fazia's presentation. And the deepest thought underneath that, something she might not even admit to herself, Labiena, what would you say that is? The deepest, I don't really like to think about this, so I'm going to suppress it thought.
That's a good question. The fact is, I think she's trained herself very well to not really do that anymore. But occasionally, it's gonna happen. Honestly, out of character, I don't really know. But I think it might have something to do with whether or not she thinks Karun may be, I don't know, she might be suspicious of them in some way. I don't know.
Right. So the deepest thought underneath that is that Fazia was right in her suspicions and her behavior against Gazia and Karun, and that even though Fazia may have let her emotions distract her, it was justified. That's her deepest thought, that she might not even want to admit to herself, that Fazia's emotions may have been her instincts correct in this case instead of pure logic.
So, actually, was it me that was rolling perception empathy?
Yes, perception empathy for me. Now, see,
really
Gazia makes that roll and probes these thoughts just like that. Just like that, that's what she detects. Now, it takes her some time to process all this, so it's going to take her some time to sort it out in her head. So go ahead and make your perception empathy roll, diff 8. And
Diff 8.
unfortunately, she's not in your head anymore, so she's not going to detect any changes that might occur. Alright, so you detect there's a swirl of auras around you. And as you kind of like look around, Gazia's aura is bright, mortal, not vampire. and there's other auras flashing through the air. It's just you detect variations, you detect disturbances, but you can't pinpoint them. You just know they're there. What's Fazia doing with all this?
Um, I think she's scheming, trying to plan and trying to come up with avenues to look at once she gets back to to her main lab, so to speak.
Right. So,
Very much,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
very much focused inwards right now is what I was gonna say.
And that's totally on brand for Fazia. Focused on what she is needing to learn and do.
So was I needing to make a second roll?
You do not, unless you want to do something.
I thought you also said something about perception awareness.
Oh yeah. Perception awareness at diff 7. This is to sense the spiritual activity going on around you. You've confirmed there is spiritual activity through auras, but you're trying to sense what's happening.
Do I sense or hear anything?
No, you're still distracted by the screams. With 2 successes, Labiena, yeah, there's ghosts. There's you detect currents that shouldn't be there. You can feel the hackles in the back of your neck standing up as you're attempting to tap into this awareness. There is a spiritual presence that's very close, but that might be Cappadocius.
Might be. In any case, I'm wondering if, well, I don't know if there'd actually be any point in Labiena casting Spirit's Touch on the paper, given that it was just given to her by...
Yeah, probably not. Not a lot of
Someone
emotions
she knew.
attached to it.
Yeah. In any case, she figures at this point that she'd probably better go to that room she was told to go to and read those notes.
Yep. All right, so that pretty much does it. You guys pack your shit up. Labiena heads off to where she was told to go head off. She goes to find it and begins reading. Does the rest of you guys want to handle anything before we close it out?
I don't think so.
Nothing comes to mind.
Oh, I'm happy with how it is.
Well, unfortunately, that's Vampire. The session, you guys part ways. There's no reconciliation, no great reckoning. You know, vampires are those kind of creatures. It's difficult to bring themselves to have such a good ending.
That's actually the curse of Cain, right?
That
I
really
believe-
is. Yeah.
Now that we're close enough, why is Gaseous aura human?
That would be a merit.
Deceptive aura.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense.
Right? Each of your normal characters get 2 experience points for tonight. It's tough to play Luke or Govan. It's tough to play a NPC that you didn't create, you know, and you did a pretty damn good job
Thank you.
portraying her emotion or turmoil, you know.
Yeah.
And given that we had about a week to create Karun and Gazia, and I just gave you guys a couple of quick notes on it and let you come up with the rest. Great job. I love the merits you guys picked. I love the flaws you guys picked. I love the merits that became flaws for this, just because of the circumstances. I thought you guys did a fantastic job, and I'm very proud of what we did tonight. So, as a reminder, the next session is not going to happen on the 19th. I have something going on I have to do. I will let you guys know if I can do something on the 26th, but the next official game is going to be April 2nd. And it's going to be Clan Meeting Asimite.
Ooh.
Regarding that,
Sweet.
um, there's gonna be a time skip, right?
There is. I'm going to be messing around with official canon timeline a little bit, so don't let that concern you too much. I am going to assign a couple of you guys some Asimite NPCs. So if you want to do a little bit of reading on them, I'm going to give you a couple of like little goals, hints, whatever. And we're going to be doing a playthrough of Astartes visiting Element.
Sounds like fun.
I do
Sounds
want
like
to just.
very-
I do want to just bring attention to now, of course, that Lazarus's whole thing about Labiena is absolutely canon.
Yep. Did we with Lamia today?
Yeah, so I tried to portray her as she doesn't give two shits about death and people. Like, so they worship, of course, now that, we're done with the session, they worship Lilith and her role as mother of monsters. And when they talk about death and the functions of death, their concern goes beyond what Cappadocius wanted and envisioned for death. So they have, at the moment, overlapping interests. As you guys know very well, that's not always the case in the future. So, yeah, she utilizes death to understand pain. Life, death as a cycle, and utilizing that life cycle of life and death and pain to grow strong. Because in strength there is power, and with power you can take back what was taken from you.
Almost sounds like the Sith Code.
So, well, that does it for us, guys. Thanks for playing. I appreciate it. And good night.